My name is Jack. When I ended the long and exhausting workday and stepped into the house, I loosened my tie, carefully placed my briefcase by the door, and then hung my coat on the chair. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw Allie busy in front of the stove, and steam was rising from the pot. "Dear, you're back. I prepared your favorite lasagna today." Allie turned her head and said with a smile, but that smile seemed rather forced. The laughter of the children in the living room carried into the kitchen, filling this space with warmth. I looked towards the living room and shouted, "What are you two up to?" Lucy's voice came. "Tom is building a block tower and it's about to collapse." "No, it won't," Tom retorted, followed by a loud crash and the squeals of laughter. I shook my head with a smile, walked into the kitchen, and gently hugged Allie from behind, saying, "Dear, you've worked hard." Allie trembled slightly and seemed a little unnatural. "It's nothing hard. Wash your hands and get ready for dinner." During dinner, the family sat around the dining table. The soft light shone on us, creating a warm atmosphere. I looked at Allie and couldn't help saying, "Dear, have you been working too much recently? I feel you've lost weight." Allie didn't raise her head and replied, "You know, Donovan is a perfectionist. I have to keep up with his pace all the time." I nodded and said slowly, "Wes, I understand. But dear, I feel that your state is not right recently. Are you really okay? Did you encounter any problems at work?" Allie raised her head and forced a smile. "Of course, it's just that I'm tired from work, Jack. There's nothing. Don't worry about me." But her eyes avoided looking directly at me. In the days that followed, Allie was always absent-minded. Whenever her phone rang, she nervously picked it up. Sometimes she even secretly replied to messages in the middle of the night. I tried to find a suitable opportunity to have a good talk with her. One night, when the children were asleep, I pulled Allie to sit on the sofa and said seriously, "Allie, I think there seems to be some estrangement between us. We need to sit down and have a good chat." Allie replied impatiently, "Jack, I don't have the mood right now. There are a bunch of things at work waiting for me to handle." I frowned and said with a hint of urgency in my tone, "But dear, we can't continue like this. This is not good for our relationship. We used to be so close and talk about everything, but now it's like there's a wall between us." Allie stood up and raised her voice a little. "I'm really tired, Jack. Let's talk about it later." After saying that, she turned and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door with a bang. One night, I came home earlier than usual. The house was eerily quiet. I walked upstairs in confusion and gently pushed open the bedroom door, only to see a scene that made me stunned. Allie and her boss Richard were in bed. "What's going on here?" My voice trembled, and anger and shock made my hands shake, and my heart seemed to fall into an ice cellar instantly. Richard actually smiled provocatively and said, "Oh, this is really awkward. But Jack, you should also reflect on yourself. Was it because you didn't care enough about Allie?" There wasn't a trace of guilt on his face. Instead, he had a disgusting smug expression. Allie hurriedly pulled the quilt to cover herself and shouted, "Jack, don't listen to him." I was furious, my eyes were red, and shouted loudly, "Allie, how could you do this to me? To our family? I've done so much for this family, working hard, taking care of the children, all for the sake of making our life happy and beautiful. But you did such a thing." Allie was silent for a moment and then said coldly, "Since you've discovered it, what do you want? Anyway, I have no feelings for you anymore." Her words were like a knife, stabbing sharply into my heart. I rushed out in despair, my heart hurting as if it was torn apart. I didn't know where to go and finally arrived at my mother's house in a state of utter loss. "Mom, Allie betrayed me. She was with her boss." My voice choked, my face filled with pain and despair, and tears welled up in my eyes. My mother frowned and held my hand, saying, "Jack, maybe there's a misunderstanding in the middle. You calm down first." I shouted excitedly, "Mom, there's no misunderstanding. I saw it with my own eyes." She ruined our family. I waved my arms, my emotions almost out of control. My mother sighed and said, "Child, for the sake of the children, maybe you should try to forgive her and give her a chance. The integrity of the family is too important for Lucy and Tom." I looked at my mother in disbelief. "Mom, you don't understand. This hurt me too deeply. How could I forgive her so easily? Her betrayal made me lose confidence in everything." My mother persuaded, "Jack, sometimes in life you have to learn to compromise and tolerate. Maybe she was just confused for a moment and will repent." I stood up and said firmly, "Mom, I can't listen to you this time. I've decided to leave this broken place and start anew. I can't let the children live in such an environment full of lies and betrayal. I moved with the children to a new rental house. It was a small one, but at least it was peaceful. I said to the children, "Babies, we are going to start a new life. This will be a great adventure." Lucy blinked her big eyes and asked, Dad, why did we move? Where's Mom?" There was confusion and unease in her eyes. I crouched down and said gently, "Baby, Mom has some things to deal with, but Dad will always be with you, and we will have a great time." I tried to make my voice sound light-hearted, but my heart was full of pain. Tom pulled at the corner of my shirt. "Dad, I miss Mom." His voice was choked with sobs, and his little face was covered with tears. I felt a sharp pain in my heart and hugged them tightly. "Babies, we will see Mom in the future, but for now, we need to adapt to this new life first." Not long after, I received a call from the hospital. The doctor said on the other end of the line, "Sir, your wife and her colleague were in a car accident. Their conditions are currently stable, but I thought you should know." I answered without hesitation, "I won't go to see her. They deserve it." There wasn't a shred of pity in my heart, only painful memories of the past. I decided to fight for the custody of the children. I collected all kinds of evidence to prove that Allie's behavior was not good for the children. In court, Allie cried and begged me, "Jack, I know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. The children can't be without a mother. I swear I will change. I will take good care of this family in the future." Her makeup was smeared by tears, looking extremely disheveled. I looked at her coldly. "Allie, you should have thought of this day earlier. When you did such a thing, did you ever think about the children? It's too late to say anything now." My voice was firm and resolute. Allie shouted desperately, "Jack, you can't be so heartless. I really know I was wrong. In the end, I got full custody of the children." Allie lost her job and family, and her life fell into quinjing. She called me many times. "Jack, I really regret it. Please help me. I have no job now, no place to live. I'm really at a dead end." Her voice was full of desperation and pleading. I firmly refused. "The consequences are all your own. Don't disturb our lives anymore. My children and I are doing well now and don't need you." At work, I met the kind Claire. Once, at the company party, Claire saw me sitting alone in the corner, lost in thought. She walked over and asked concernedly, "Jack, I feel that you always seem preoccupied. Is there something bothering you?" Her eyes were full of concern and tenderness. I hesitated for a moment and then told her about my experience. Claire gently held my hand. "Jack, let the past go. You deserve a better life." Her words were like a warm current, warming my cold heart. As time passed, my relationship with Claire grew closer and closer. One day, we took the children to the amusement park together. Lucy said with a smile, "Dad, I'm so happy today." Her laughter was as clear as a silver bell. Tom also shouted, "I want to ride the Ferris wheel again." He jumped excitedly. Claire looked at the children and said gently, "As long as you are happy, we will come again next time." There was a happy smile on her face. The children gradually accepted her. One weekend, we made cakes at home together. Lucy's face was covered with flour and said mischievously, "Dad, do I look like a little cat?" She blinked her eyes, looking extremely cute. I smiled and said, "Yes, you do." Claire was helping on the side, and the family was having a great time, while Allie was still struggling alone in regret and downfall. One day, I was busy at the company when I suddenly received a call from my mother. "Jack, I think you should reconsider Allie's matter. After all, she is the mother of the children." My mother's tone was full of worry and helplessness. I frowned and said, "Mom, after what she did, how could I forgive her? She has broken the trust between us and hurt our family." On my mother's side, "Child, everyone makes mistakes. Maybe she has really repented. Give her a chance and also give the children a complete family." I was silent for a moment. "Mom, don't talk about this anymore. I've made my decision. I can't let the children be hurt again." After hanging up the phone, my mood became a little heavy. When I got home at night, Claire noticed my abnormality. "Jack, what happened?" she asked concernedly, and there was worry in her eyes. I told her my mother's words. Claire gently hugged me. "Jack, no matter what decision you make, I will support you. But in any case, you have to listen to your inner voice." Some time passed, and Allie suddenly appeared in front of my house. "Jack, please, let me see the children." Her eyes were full of pleading. Her hair was messy, and her face was haggard. I looked at her coldly. "You are not qualified to see them. What you did has already hurt them." My voice was cold and resolute. Allie cried and said, "Jack, I really know I was wrong. I regret it every day. Give me a chance to make up for it." At this time, Lucy and Tom heard the voices and ran out of the room. "Mum," Lucy shouted in surprise. There was both surprise and confusion in her eyes. Ollie wanted to go forward and hug them, but I stopped her. Kids, go back to the room. My voice was stern. Lucy and Tom unwillingly went back. Allie slumped to the ground, crying uncontrollably. I looked at her with mixed feelings in my heart, but in the end I didn't soften my heart and closed the door. As days passed, my relationship with Claire deepened, and we experienced many wonderful times together. During a family trip, we watched the sunset by the sea. The golden sunlight shone on the sea, creating a sparkling effect. Claire leaned on my shoulder and said, "Jack, I'm very grateful to have met you and the children. This is my happiest time." Her voice was gentle and warm. I held her hand. "Claire, it's you who have filled our lives with sunlight again." I looked at her, my heart full of gratitude and love, while Allie was still wandering alone in her darkness, paying a heavy price for her past mistakes.